Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Poulan 3816 chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it just doesn't run right or he can't get it started. So let's take a look inside the fuel tank and see what he's got going on in here. I'm shining a light down inside to see if the fuel filter is still attached, if there's any water in the bottom of the tank, if it's even mixed gas in there. And what we find is a pretty dark mix. That could mean he's got a lot of oil in there. It could mean that the fuel's getting old. And I believe he said it's been sitting around for a while, so it's probably a little bit of a combination of both. Old fuel and excess oil in the fuel. So let's take the top cover off of here and take a closer look at what we got going on underneath the hood. 3 screws holding this cover down. It's pretty clean under here. Maybe that air filter's in good shape. There's not debris all over the place. I think this is one of those saws that was bought to react to some storm damage. Probably got put away with fuel in it. And now they need to use it again quite some time later. Spark plug looks alright. Let's look in that cylinder and make sure that it's not scored. And what I'm seeing in there is all clean and shiny. So that tells me that we're going to be able to get this thing going for the guy. Just going to quick test for spark and make sure this is actually just a fuel related problem. When you pull the choke lever out on this one, it lifts the stop switch up into the run position. So we had spark. Plug goes back in. We'll snug it down. And then we're going to move on to the fuel system. You'll need an 8mm socket to pull the 2 nuts off of here. And then there's going to be a 3rd screw that holds this air filter base into place. That one kind of dropped down in there on me. We'll get it. We just don't want to forget it. There it is. The lines don't look too bad on here. I mean, nothing really looks that bad. It's just been sitting around. So there's our throttle linkage. If you squeeze the trigger a little bit, you can gain access to where you can pull that linkage right out of the trigger handle. Now I'm popping a fuel line off the carburetor. And then here's the main fuel line that comes from the tank. That's it. Your carburetor's been harvested. Yeah, the fuel lines look pretty good. So let's open this thing up and see what we got. On this side is the fuel pump. There's a diaphragm in the carburetor that is moved by pulses from the engine, and it pumps fuel. We have a couple of screws that hold this plate on the back of the carburetor. The plate is a secondary set of throttle valves. And there's just 2 tiny little screws that hold it in place. We got to get it off of there so we can gain access to the metering diaphragm easier. But those screws are really small, so be careful. Now with that out of the way, there's just 2 screws that hold the metering diaphragm cover in place. This is our metering diaphragm, and it's pretty stiff. And when these things are stiff, they don't allow the proper movement for it to act upon the metering lever and in turn open and close the needle properly to let fuel in or to keep fuel out. Just cleaning up some gasket material there. So we have a Zama carburetor, and we need to get a kit for this. So this is a model C1M, and then if you look, there's some numbers stamped on it, in this case W26. So if you look that up on the Zama website, C1M W26, it'll give you a choice of an RB129 or a GND70. The RB is the rebuild kit that comes with all the soft parts and the hard parts. So you get the diaphragms and the gaskets, the needle, welch plugs, metering lever, all that stuff. The GND kit is just the gaskets and diaphragms. So here we have removed the metering lever and the needle. And now we're gonna, we gotta clean up that new needle. There's some preservative or something on that rubber tip. We just want to clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to spray some carb cleaner on it and then wipe it off. I found sometimes that there's so much of that preservative on those new needles that it actually created a problem. So I'm hanging the needle in the metering lever, dropping the metering lever down into place over the top of the spring, pushing the cross shaft underneath the screw, and then snugging the screw down. Now that we've got that in place, I'm just measuring the metering lever height here. In this case, the end of the metering lever has got to be at the same height as the sides of the carburetor. And I was using that razor blade just to measure that. So first we put down the gasket and then the metering diaphragm itself. And then we can drop our cover on it. This cover has a little bit of a locating pin. And 2 screws to hold it down. I've been getting a lot of requests about this screwdriver. What brand is it? Where can I get one? I bought it on Amazon or eBay, and I cannot find that thing anymore. They quit making it, which is unfortunate because it's been working out pretty well for me. So on this side, we're going to lay down our fuel pump. That's the fuel pump diaphragm. And then put the gasket down. Then peel the old gasket and pump off the cover. Drop the cover down into place. You'll notice the cover has the stop screw for the idle. So I'm holding the throttle linkage open a little bit so it doesn't interfere with that screw while I'm dropping it in place. and then a single screw to hold the cover down. Now certainly there's more that could have been done to this. If the thing was really gunky, we could have removed the high and the low speed screws. We could have put it in the ultrasonic cleaner. I found that most of the carbs that I have to refresh, just putting the soft parts in like we just did is all that they really need. So we're screwing down the secondary throttle assembly. These are small screws, so don't get carried away. And that's it, our carburetor is done. Fuel line is going on. And we're sliding the carburetor over the studs. Putting the other fuel line on. This is the one that goes from the purge bulb to the carburetor. There we go. Push the carburetor into place. Throttle linkage gets attached to the carb. Squeeze the trigger. Find the hole and drop the linkage in that. Pretty simple stuff. Now there's one piece that looks like I'm about to forget. There it is, the choke lever. Got to get that in place first. Okay, we're going to screw down our air filter holder. 2 nuts. And don't forget about that extra screw. Put a final torque on those nuts. There's really no reason to replace this air filter. It's in pretty good shape. I never really cared for the way that cover goes over that air filter. But I guess this cylinder cover kind of holds that in place. So we'll get this screwed down and we'll check the fuel and the oil level in here. And then fire it up and see if it's going to run or not. You'll notice that we never even changed the fuel filter on here. Just didn't need it. Hitting the primer bulb, looks like we're just pumping air right now. There we go. Moving a little bit of fuel. That's a good sign. If I do a repair on a saw, they always leave the shop with a full tank of fuel and oil ready to cut wood. So let's fire this thing up and see if it's going to run. And if it does, that's all I'm going to have for you on the Poulan 3816 that needed a little bit of carburetor attention. Thanks for watching. Later.